Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm DJ Montage. I am the host for this evening. Angel had to step out for the night. I'm just going to fill in for him just for a little bit here. We are starting on episode 3 for coaching sessions, and it's a continuation of the dating and relationships questions. So have your insights, input, and questions ready. So let's get going here. All right. Let's bring Genia and Jesse up here.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
DJ
How are you
Montage.
two
Good
doing
to see
tonight?
you.
Nice to see you on this beautiful Tuesday night. How are you doing?
Doing very good and enjoying the weather while it's nice out.
All right. We're excited to have you as the hostess with the mostest tonight. Ready for deep
I think
diving.
it'd be an interesting experience. So I'm going to
Absolutely.
enjoy every moment of it here.
Awesome.
All right.
Right
So
on.
we left out with the dating and relationship info last week.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's see, where can we go from here now? Where would you two like to leave off from where we left?
Well, yeah, we
before?
talked about, cyber dating, and we talked about, the challenges of technology when it comes to dating, meeting people. We leaned into some communication glitches, and things like that. And
Right. We touched on the social conditioning that all of us go through, even though generationally some things might be different. But I think Angel had brought up the social media aspect,
Right.
and that has definitely made a huge shift and a huge change. But I think we think that even more of a focus can be placed upon, how you feel about yourself stepping into the dating and
right.
talking to people, because obviously that is what you're leading with, whether you realize it or not.
Sure. And I think we
Right.
touched on there's always been challenges and roadblocks in dating. I mean, now there's just newer challenges and roadblocks, with the added bonus of technology and all sorts of dating sites comes all different sort of thoughts and beliefs.
Right.
That we're creating along the way and feelings about that. So we're excited to continue that diatribe tonight and see if we can figure it all out for people.
Right.
It definitely adds an extra flair, doesn't it?
It sure does. Dating is got a flair. It's a dance, whether it's online or offline, dating and relationships. It's a dance. It's a journey.
That's it.
Well, we do have ourselves another guest tonight. She was here in the prior 2 shows. Her name is Genia. Genia, come on in.
Yeah, hi, it's Gia.
Hey,
Sorry
Gia.
about that.
Great to
Hi.
see you.
Gia, nice to have you back. Thanks for joining us again where we left off with your input and insights about dating and relationships. We're excited that you have chosen to join us again tonight.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you.
So
let's see.
Dive.
So we just sort of recapped where we were at. I know, Gia, you were probably backstage sort of listening into where we were and the topics we sort of touched on last week that we'll continue. So, but I wanted to start with a question. I know most often we get the questions being the coaches, but I wanted to throw a question at you guys, specifically Gia. So, Gia, what do you think is one of the most important, aspects, if that's the right word, to, I guess, dating and relationships? What would be your number one?
My number one would be making sure that you are aware of yourself, being self-aware, because you have to know who you are in order for someone to be able to accept you, to understand you, to be able to relate to you. So if you're not aware of yourself and who you really are and what your wants and your desires are, you can't really move forward or have any successful relationships for that matter.
That's fantastic, Gia, because that gets right to the heart, the very beginning, because we even talked last week about how, oftentimes, at least the stories are there where, two people might get together, and one of the first things that they tend to realize weeks into a relationship or multiple dates is that, wow, that person that I first met at that first date or the second date, they're different. They're not, he or she is not the same person. And maybe self-awareness can act as that lever for before we step into that first date, taking some time, doing some self-inventory and discovering at least some of the immediate aspects of who we are before we step in, so that the authentic person actually comes to the first date and maintains their boundaries in line with trying to convey exactly who they are. They can't if they don't have an understanding of who they are. Not a full, it doesn't take a full understanding of who you are, because I don't think any of us really know everything about ourselves, but at least stepping into, a first date or a second date with some understanding of the things that are important to you, where you've been challenged in life, where maybe you've made some mistakes and where you've learned some lessons, all about learning who you are.
Absolutely. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So Gia, that's
Yes,
fantastic.
For sure. I think
yes.
self-awareness is a foundation. I mean, we're building the dating house, or we're building but I think this self-awareness is a foundation for everything in our lives, because
Absolutely.
what happens in here and in here is what we're projecting out there,
Right.
and attracting out there. If you want to talk about that too, but it all starts within us,
Right.
For sure. And you said, making sure you're self-aware, so you're being authentic on that first date. I think we touched upon that, how we're not like a lot of times when we're dating,
Mm-hmm.
right? We put our best selves for our best selves that we think we forward. We're wearing our nice clothes. We're putting on our fancy lipstick, right?
There's that lipstick.
There's
again,
that
DJ.
lipstick again. Don't go anywhere without it. But we do. We sort of put on the show, almost as similar to a job interview.
And I was just going to say that we're talking about dating, but at the just below that level of what we do with each other is our connections with absolutely anybody. And to Gia's point, whether it's the connection or the relationship that you have with the other person on a date, your boss, your employees, your coworkers, your family, your friends, all those different types of relationships are directly affected by the relationship you have with yourself. There's that word self again.
There's that word self.
Right back to Gia's point about self-awareness.
Yes.
You think?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It all starts with self. And we have to come back, because, it's a pattern of behavior that was learned to, please everyone else outside of us,
Right.
So we have to learn how to please ourselves. How happy am I about this, for myself, instead of saying, are you happy for me? Are you happy for me? We have to clap for ourselves, and that's a behavior that we have to start teaching our children too. And I know that's off topic, but
no.
It's all
I think it's a beautiful point. In fact, I was thinking earlier that if you go to a restaurant, a bar, or a coffee shop to have that first date, and you've spent the past few hours before that time really looking at yourself, and you're just not liking what you see, you're nervous, that mixes in with some of the perceptions and the stories that you have, and you even mentioned past issues or past events that you've gone through and what those things have taught you about yourself, and you get stuck on the negative. You can imagine as you step into that coffee shop and you sit down, the person that's coming in is not happy with themselves, don't like themselves. So obviously, what is the other person going to experience? And I think that's what you're speaking to right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some examples of self-awareness? Can anybody think of an example where they've thought about maybe who they were in a certain situation, or how they responded to a situation, or how they feel about other situations, that tells them about themselves? Anybody have any examples? Boy, that's a hard
Here's a
one.
That's
pretty
a
simple
Throw that
one.
one out there.
right? Yes, you're
Well,
going right in for
all right, so let me give you
the hard question.
an example that Genia kind of mentioned, an interview. You know, if you think back to an interview that you went to for a job, very specific, and you imagine strong enough to go back to those first few minutes in an interview, or even really the first few minutes before an interview. All right, we know we're nervous, right? Nervous, very obvious. Why are we nervous? Well, we're nervous because we are thinking about the judgment of ourselves through the eyes of the people who are interviewing us, right? But rather than asking it as a question, we actually answer it. We create a story of what we think they see, what they think, what we think they hear. So in order for me to, try and get this job, I have to put forth answers and behaviors that are going to be in line with what I think they want to see.
And we do that on dates too. I mean,
Dates.
We show up as the person a lot of times that we think they're thinking they want, right? Like I made that Nickelback reference,
Mm-hmm.
Last week. Like your date says, "Wow, Nickelback's my favorite band," and then you're like, "Yay, me too! I love Nickelback. They're awesome." Meanwhile, deep inside, you're like, "I can't stand Nickelback." Blah blah blah. Blah. But you're saying things just for that moment that may not be your truth, may not be necessarily true. And I know, the Nickelback example is a very surface example, but it even goes deeper into values, maybe, right? And beliefs, you know. And I think if we're going in inauthentic on these first dates or these first interviews, I think that is even a part of self-awareness, because even in your interview analogy, how many times has someone been on an interview or on a date, and then they go home, "Oh my God, I can't believe I said I like that band Nickelback. Let me go Google it. I don't even know any of their music," right? Because you've been dishonest with yourself.
Right. No, that's perfect
Jesse,
point.
Genia.
Yes.
It's interesting is if you think about, like, if you're going out to an interview or going some other place, you dress for your best for success.
Right.
And even with people doing that, a lot of people still forget to be themselves. They don't sit back. They don't relax. They just don't, they're stress intense because they want things to go well, when if they're just going to be themselves, things will be okay in the long run anyways.
Right.
I love that you said that, and that brings a really good point, Rob. It's you're dressing for success, or you're putting that best foot forward, or whatever the
Cliche
phrase,
is.
the cliche is, right? And then say in relationships, because then you do that, and you're playing a role again. We talked about roles, and you're playing a role, and yeah, you can play that role for about a few months. It gets exhausting. Your hair is always perfect. You're always looking good. You don't want you're wearing your good jeans. You're doing that, and you can do that and sustain that for a few months until it starts getting exhausting. And then by a few months into this relationship, all of a sudden, then you're like, you do the relaxing, right? You're wearing the frumpy sweatpants, right? The lipstick might be out the window, and then that person, that you're with is like, "Hey, whoa, what happened?
Right.
Like, what is this?" Right. And it's all this smoke and mirrors, and then we get into issues.
So maybe it's a matter of recognizing that before the date, before the interview, and spending some time thinking, okay, that's who I've been in the past. That's the mess I was.
Right.
What have I learned from it?
Right.
Well, I learned that really, if I can step in and I'm going to wear a mask, I'm going to put on the nice clothes, but that's not who I am. Who I am is inside, not only the clothes, but inside of who I am. And if I can come to a resolution of sorts that, as to who I am in these nicer clothes with the hair done, and when I communicate from the person inside, not the clothes and not the outer shell. that is, I guess, a different way of looking at the self-awareness.
Sure.
But without that, we're stepping in every single time, believing the mask is who we are.
Right.
Until,
Right.
it gets too old.
If any of you out there have actually experienced this, just leave a message here in the message for us, and just let us know.
Yeah. If you have any dating relationship questions, throw them in the comments. We will jump right on them for sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And remember, this is about you guys. This is not about us. This is about you. So if you have any questions, even anonymously, we can touch on them for sure. Because I know dating gets everybody a little twisted.
It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even more so.
Yeah.
And relationships in general, for sure.
Yeah.
And nowadays with, obviously the social media aspect of it, what we were talking about a second ago, with that shell, that's what's leading. If you think about it, and I've not been on a dating app, so I have to throw that up because I've never have. But I've heard a lot of stories, and I've heard a lot of people talking about them. And, they're swiping based on an image or maybe a tagline of sorts.
And there's judgment.
Absolutely. And it's about getting past that. It really is.
I mean, even though we kind of were before the whole online thing, we did not meet online.
No.
We didn't have quote social media. I guess we did. I mean, we texted.
Yep.
And there was Facebook. We're not that old.
Nothing compared to what today is.
But
what's that? What's that, DJ?
Nothing to what we have today. It's no comparison for today for what we have.
Right.
Back then you had to go out. You had to meet people in person instead of just like we're doing now. We're speaking, screen to screen instead of person to person.
Right.
Granted, yes, this helps tremendously because it brings people closer, but we're still distant. We don't have that opportunity to be there in person and talk to those people, whether it's friend, family, especially with dating. Well, there you go.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. And I think I think there was some, like Match.com was around, eHarmony. There was a few. I mean, we didn't have back then. I mean, and some people, it was just never my thing,
Sure.
And there's plenty of people out there that the online dating is not their thing, or they, they prefer meeting people in person, and whichever way, no judgment, whatever works for you, go for it. Right. But I think then we get into social media in general, right? Like people get into relationships and we are all on our phones and looking at things. And then all of a sudden the person that they're in the relationship with, they notice they hearted someone's Instagram, but they didn't like their post, right? Or they didn't change their relationship status fast enough. So we have all that kind of going on.
Yeah. And I guess if you had to hearken it back and connect it to dating dating in the past, it would be that classic meme of the guy and the girl walking down, the pathway in the park, and an attractive woman or an attractive man walks by, and one of them looks around. It's very much, like that, only faster, more repetitive, and how we react to that and how those things end up playing out in the story of the dating or the relationship, can have a huge impact. But kind of like what we were talking about a minute ago, some of those things that we can do ahead of time, some of the probing self-awareness type questions that we can place on ourselves, the experiences that we can imagine. All right, I'm sitting with, and I'll do it from like my perspective. I'm sitting with a woman in a coffee shop, and this is our first date, and the waitress comes up to deliver our drinks, and she's amazingly attractive. Who do I want to be in that moment? Who am I in that moment? Can I stay focused? Can I, be the person who has come to this meeting, to get to know someone and not allow, those impulses to take over? Well, wait a minute. There's a piece of my self-awareness. How impulsive am I? How much space do I place in between the attractive person walking up to the table and my reaction. Do I just react, or do I take some time to think about who I am? So there's one aspect of self-awareness that, you know, you can practice ahead of time.
There was a word that you said in there
Mm-hmm.
that positively triggered me.
Okay.
You said presence,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my question is, you know, and being present, I think absolutely. I'm going to add that to Gia's list of important factors in relationships,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's dating or not. Being present. Can you be present, you know, with an online communication say? How does that look? Because I think a lot of times we're not present because we talk about communication and how you can't really communicate by text or things like that. It's really not the best way to communicate anyway, ever. But is there a way to be more mindfully present in our online and offline relationships?
Before we answer that, Gia, what does presence mean to you in the way that Gene is describing?
Being here in the moment, feeling your attention, feeling, you know, a closeness between me and the other party, you know, just from them paying attention, you know, listening, you know, just being there, knowing that they're all here with me, that their mind isn't off drifting off thinking about work or the laundry or whatever. Right here, like all of us, we're right here, we're present, we're connected, we're listening to each other, so we can respond accordingly. If we don't, you know, listen, we can't do that. So just, you know, being here in the moment, in the moment.
No, that's perfect. DJ, anything to add to that? Presence, what presence might be? Although
Presence?
I think Gia
she did a great explanation of that. Presence is literally being here in the moment. No, it's being aware of what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you want to say. You know, I mean, yes, is it easy just to go off the cuff sometimes? I mean, some people have an amazing skill to do that, but how true and real are they being too? But you're right. It is all about presence and being in this moment right now.
And I think putting some contrast on it and is just, you know, Gia said, being in the present. She said, you're not thinking about, you know, the laundry or work. So you're not thinking about the future. You're not thinking about the past. And if you can successfully not be thinking about something that has happened in the past and not thinking about what might happen in the future, by default, you are present. So it's a good contrast.
And it sounds so simple, but it's definitely not easy. And I'm sure there's viewers out there like, yeah, sure, right. I have 1,000 million things on my mind. You know, even I catch myself during the day. I'm far from present, right? I practice one of my other favorite words, mindfulness, you know, because it really is a mindful practice to be present, not only when you're sitting at the coffee shop, not only when you're sitting on a podcast, being fully out, and certainly not only when you're on your phone responding to a text and things like that. It takes a moment. It takes mindfulness to really become present. But then how do we do that? Like, great word, but how do we become mindful and present? Or how can we practice it? Anybody?
Honestly, it's about allowing things just to be. And I just wanted to add something to what we were saying earlier. When you're in the present moment, it's very enjoyable, no matter what the circumstances are, or however things are going to end, if they're going to be in positive or a negative aspect. As long as you're there and enjoying the time with those people, what else can be done? You know.
It's a good point.
Right.
Yeah, I do, you know, not to repeat the point, but, you know, anxiety, future, depression, past. You know, it obviously I put those labels next to those time stamps because the mindfulness, being present, you know, if you suffer from anxiety or you suffer from depression, just recognizing and understanding the timestamp that is on those two afflictions, can at least give you a position to kind of deal with those types of things. But what was your question again?
What are some easy tips and tricks and quick hacks, or not even hacks, because you're really not hacking, you're just becoming more present. So what would you recommend to somebody that wants to become, or notices, you know what, I'm really not present. The last date I was on, I was thinking about work that day. I was thinking about, oh my God, when I get home, I have all these things to do. I got to walk my dog, got to do my laundry. Like, I wasn't really there. What would you tell that person to start? Like something simple, some simple exercise just to start becoming here and now. Because it does sound easy, it does. Really not.
Anybody have any thoughts?
Because our brains are doing everything but.
I would say becoming aware.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Bringing that self-awareness back into play. Being mindful. Okay, I know I get distracted sometimes. Oh man, she was a great catch. It would have been a really great date, but my mind was all over the place. So next time I'm going to be mindful. When I get distracted, I'm going to pull myself right back. And that's
Beautiful.
the start. That's the start. And then
Absolutely.
and then that's building up your mindfulness practice as well, because every time it happens, you're just drawing yourself back out. So then it becomes more easier. Then you become more aware. So when you feel like you're about to react in that way, that manner, you can correct it.
Right.
So basically becoming aware.
So building the awareness.
Building the awareness, recognizing and acknowledging these things are a distraction. This behavior is not working for me, or whatever the case may be.
I love that. And I love that you said, like, pull yourself back, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're pulling ourselves back from either time traveling in the past or time traveling in the future.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think everything begins and ends, and anyone that knows me, is with the breath. So one thing I would say, if someone wants to become more present, even if they don't like the word mindful and meditation's freaking you out, just the breath. When I find myself spinning here, there, and everywhere, it's just, I take a breath, I take a beat, and I'm here right now. That's it. Take a breath. You don't even have to breathe. It's not in your nose, out your mouth, in no special way. Just take a breath, right? I don't care what hole you're breathing from. Just take a breath. And that actually will bring you back into this moment if you focus on it. And you start doing that, and it will start helping you build your presence in those moments.
Yep. Another technique that we learned looking into other facets of kind of building the inner model, so to speak. There was a famous gentleman who developed the concept of flow, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, back in the 70s. And one of the exercises that he had his students do in developing this concept was, of course, back then they only had pagers. So today we have cell phones, so it works much better with cell phones. But if you have an app on your cell phone that has a clock on it, that tells the time, and it's got alarms, one of the things that you can do is you can set an alarm for once an hour. And maybe that's a little bit too often. Maybe you might want to do it once every 2 or 3 hours. And in that alarm title, you just simply leave yourself a message. Check with how you're feeling. Do a breath. How's your self-awareness? And so once every couple of hours, your phone goes off, you look at it, you get that reminder, and that can help build a habit, especially if you're doing it every day. And especially if you commit to reacting to it. You might even open up another app that's got notes to it and jot down how you're feeling, what you think about dating, so on and so forth. So there's a couple of, so through developing awareness, as Gia had put, there's a couple of examples.
Yes. And I love that, going with the flow and setting the reminders too, because that's a big thing where people don't know how to start. Where do I start? So that's the start. Repetition, practice. Practice makes perfect. There is no perfect in this journey, but You get what I'm saying? Just
Absolutely.
Right. I like saying practice makes progress, right?
yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
That, I mean, and if you think about it, that is how we developed all the other habits, like the habits of getting nervous before a date or a meeting, the habits of not being present is a habit of thinking about the future, worrying about the future, or thinking about the past and lamenting about it. So those are habits. We're just going to create a new habit that brings you right to the present moment through the awareness.
Yep. And it's nice too if you're wanting to work on these things to make yourself better. It doesn't take 1 or 2 days. It's just like Jesse is saying, creating a habit. It usually takes about 30 days to make that habit to where it stays with you all the time.
Right.
And the more you do it, the more it stays with you. And that unfortunately, that goes with good habits and bad habits.
Right.
And it seems it's more bad habits most of us pick up than they are good habits. And we just have to be self-aware of those so we can correct them and keep those good habits for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the reason a reason that I agree with you, I think that a lot of the habits prior to coming to a point of awareness, and I think that there's obviously 4 people on this call that are at a point of awareness, but prior to that, the habits that we build, they tend to be a little bit negative, and that's because they're responses to events that we wrapped meaning around a long time ago, about who we are, back to the self-awareness. And, they weren't positively built because they were kind of a reaction to how things had gone down, whether it's raising of parents, previous dating.
Right. Previous relationships.
Mm-hmm. And those things, and so we reacted without thought, without the awareness, and we behaved in a certain way, or we biologically responded, and we responded. We thought about ourselves, and oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Oh, I acted like a fool, or I looked horrible, or whatever it is. And those are the same habits being built, or excuse me, those are the same criteria that end up building the habit of a self-awareness that is probably either lacking or just negative.
Right. I think I was just going to say something because you said, bringing the past into the present, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the beliefs and strategies. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles in relationships, not just because of technology, but I think it's hurdle in relationships of all times is bringing these belief baggage from your past relationships into your present experience.
You said it last week. We were never taught.
Never taught.
We only defaulted and reacted.
Right.
But there was no one out there with, the 5 steps to, building good, relationship skills, or the 10 fastest ways to get the person you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Make everybody fall in love with you, right?
Yes.
Do the love stuff.
They're out there, but not really sure that they were.
Or how healthy they are.
Exactly. But yeah, so we definitely have unpacked the idea of the habits around, who we've become, and now who we're going to be, and building in the mind, the breath practice, or building in a reminder practice, and the reminder process, with your cell phone. That's based on kind of another concept that we've talked to people about, and that is planning during times of peace, not during the war. And it's a little bit, violent based, but it's not actually. In other words,
it's a little dark.
The idea is that, the great generals and the leaders of armies, in every great battle or war, didn't plan how they were going to battle in that war during the battle. They did it long before. So we can take a lesson from that concept. And, the last place you want to do to build a good strategy in how to be a good date is in the date.
Right.
That should be long before. So like some of the things that Gia had mentioned, as far as, being interested in someone else, you had kind of alluded to that in that connection thing. And to me, that seems like a strong fundamental. If you're going to go on a date tonight and it's, 8 hours before then, what kind of practices, what kind of mental thoughts can you teach yourself through repetition, and maybe build a little mini habit? Won't be a full-blown habit, but at least a kind of a cycle of, I really want to be interested in, I want to get to know this person. If I spend too much time thinking about myself worried about what they're seeing, worried about how I look, then I'm not going to be present. I'm not going to be authentic.
I'm not going to be aware.
I'm going to be so unaware. I want to be aware. I want to listen. I want to really understand who they are. Practice that long before.
So you're saying being intentional about
Correct.
What you're doing, being intentional about the date, which means being intentional about dating and relationships. I mean, it goes back to Gia's self-awareness. What is it that you're looking for in a relationship?
What do I want?
What do I want? What does my favorite version of me, what does that version of me want? My favorite version, which we should always be living from. Not so easy, right? I'm not always living from my favorite version, but I hope, 8 times out of 10 I am, 80% of the time.
But you're not.
What do I want in my relationships? How do I want to show up?
Right.
How do I want to feel? How do I want to make others around me feel? These are all intentional thoughts that I don't think we even think about half the time.
No.
We never, we don't plan. We just kind of show up. It is what it is. I am the way I am. This is, but being intentional in every moment and choosing to show up as your favorite version of yourself. I'm trying to shy away from that best version kind of narrative, because for me, that seems like it's coming from a place of lack, right?
Right.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you're looking at your best version, you're just not there yet. So there's something wrong with you. And I don't like it. So we're going to talk about the favorite version. How would the favorite version of Genia show up in this moment?
And what is it that she wants?
And what is it that she wants? Is she looking for a long-term relationship? Is she looking for
a friend?
A friend. Is she looking for just some companionship for a few hours? Right? I mean, no harm, no foul, no judgment. Everyone has their own, intentions, right?
Do you guys think that knowing what you want and the other person knowing what they want is an important aspect to a good experience on a first date?
Very, very important. Very important, because, it clears out some of the fog and some of the clouds, and clowns. When you can, truly be yourself, when you can come through and be yourself, you should be, you going on a date, you should be walking in the energy of, how do I want to be remembered?
Right.
When she walks away or he walks away and they tell their friend about their date, what are they going to say about me? I have to be present, because I'm like a perfectionist. I want people to remember good things about me.
Right.
My energy. I want them to know that I was there, that I was listening. So even if things work out or not, they know I was a good person, that I'm a real person.
Right.
So
no, I and it's funny too, is I didn't even think about that. But like what Gia, what you just got done saying is right on spot. What do you want? Knowing what you want as far as in the other person, that can be a very, very shaky bridge to kind of go down.
It's a whole different conversation.
But knowing who you want to be, or thinking about who you want to be in other people's eyes as you're walking away from that first date, that's a very unique, and I think that's an empowering
and being
mindset,
and being secure in that empowering mindset. This is what I want. So then, even if you are sitting there at dinner with one of the clowns, it's okay, right? Because you know what you want, and it has nothing to do with this other person. Like, right?
Absolutely.
You can just send the clowns, down the street. Okay, no harm, no foul. We're just not in alignment, and that's okay.
Right. Because
that's gonna happen.
You will think about who you were at the end of that clown adventure, that
right?
Clown connection, and thinking, seeing yourself as somebody who reacted, really negatively or offended or whatever to the clown. That's not going to build who you are.
No, and then again, remember, you're creating your beliefs while you're creating your experiences. So if you are, having, a challenging time with someone that you've just met, and it's just that there's just not an alignment, and what you want is not really where they're at, and okay, rather than, oh, I had another horrible date. He was this and that, because you're carrying that with you, right? I told him I wanted this out of life, and he just wants that. Like, and then we start playing the shame blame game, and then we carry that with us. Then we carry that belief into our next date. So then the next clown shows up, and he doesn't even stand a chance because we're still all bitter about clown number one.
Yeah, but at that point, you're already waiting for the big red nose to show up. So
Exactly.
you already know, okay, wait, whoa,
Right.
sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Kimberly. She actually liked the saying for the clowns too.
Right.
We
Yeah.
appreciate that.
You know, and I think we've all had experiences, you know, spending time with someone we're not in alignment with, maybe in the dating frame or in the friendship frame or just life.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay.
So,
Right.
so I just want to recap because I think we built a great little initiating plan.
Yes,
I guess
we're
a
building a house.
strategy,
We're building the
building
dating
the
house.
foundation. You know, starting with the self-awareness, like Gia had said. You know, learning, practicing. You know, asking yourself questions and exploring some of your past events and the meanings you put around them. Getting to know who you are, because that's the
First,
person that's going
number
in.
one, the most important relationship is the relationship with yourself first. Because why? Because you are stuck with you this entire journey of life. It all starts here first. So if you can't get your own house right, how can you expect
Others.
Exactly.
to get you right or fix you? It's
Exactly.
work. It's exhausting. But go ahead.
And,
Sorry.
no, and then presence being a very strong number two. Learning and practicing to be present in the moment. That's not just for the other person. That is also for you.
It's 100% for you first.
When Gia explained exactly, you know, all the benefits of that.
Breathe.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Got to.
I think we talked last week, and I'll throw when we talked communication. That's important, but even I think sometimes more importantly than communication, because I think things get lost in translation, is comprehension, meaning listening. You're making sure the other person is understanding what you're saying, how you're saying it. Make sure there's comprehension there. Right. Like the word communication gets thrown around all the time. Oh, communication. And it's like,
it's the news.
It doesn't have anything to do with like a drink or two. It's
what's that, DJ?
This doesn't have anything to do with if you're having a drink or two. That's not the comprehension.
Right.
Yes. But yeah, like comprehension. Like, and really, honestly, you're really not comprehending much if your communication. I communicated it. I texted it. Not so much. Because remember, when we're reading texts from other people, we are reading them through our eyes and our perceptions and our moods and our things. So probably if you're trying to have communication in a relationship, you know, save the texts for the quick stuff, the easy stuff, not the big, deep conversations. And
to tie that back to dating, I once heard, and I cannot quote it, and I won't even paraphrase it, but a great definition of charisma, because I think some of the things that Gia had mentioned earlier about you know, wanting to leave people with, you know, really positive impressions. You want them walking away thinking, you know, about the best version of you. That can be kind of it's not necessarily only wrapped into charisma, but the best definition I ever heard about charisma has to do with, I have charisma if you walk away feeling as if I'm interested in you. And so if you think about that, if you think about the people who you might call out as being, somehow they made you feel important to them. And that can be a tremendous strategy to make it sound harsh, but maybe tool for connection. And, you know, really, you know, especially in a date, what I'm hearing there, it feels good to make others feel good. Absolutely. That's what I'm hearing you say there as well. Thank you. That's much better than what I said. That was my comprehension of what you were saying. You communicated it very well. Did I communicate it well? You did. Thank you.
All right. Well,
work makes the dream work.
We are actually winding up here. We're getting down to about our last 15 minutes here.
Is it time for Meme Busters?
Meme Busters is definitely here.
Awesome,
Uh,
because Jesse said the word, the version of yourself that's showing up, and we talked about versions. So I think the meme that we're busting tonight might have something to do with that. I don't know.
Yep. And for tonight is Meme Busters, busting through toxic positivity, spiritual bypassing, and just plain bad advice.
Yes, we
All right.
scour social media because we love social media, and we look for memes that give us a spark that we have to talk about. This one had a little bad word in it, so I bleeped it out. So you want to read it to us, Jesse?
This week's meme is not everyone gets the same version of me. One person might tell you I'm an amazingly beautiful soul. Another person will say I'm cold-hearted.
Bleep.
Or a cold-hearted.
Bleep.
Believe them both. I act accordingly.
Oh, let's bust it.
Well, so for portions of this, it's easily acceptable and something that we've all socially been not necessarily conditioned, but we've learned. And there are many versions of ourselves.
And there's absolutely also, there's almost 8 billion people on the planet with 8 billion different perspectives. So 8 billion people are probably going to have a different perspective of you.
Right.
Absolutely okay.
But when we take an awareness of the fact that I can be very, very warm and I can have a beautiful soul, and I can be not so warm and have a much darker soul and cold-hearted. When I first read this meme, I felt like there was fear behind it.
I absolutely did too.
And that the person who wrote it, sure, of course, has those parts, but because they're willing to switch and to intentionally use, say, the darker side or even the more beautiful side, there's fear pushing that, because neither of them by themselves, or excuse me, always having both pieces inside is inauthentic.
Well, and I think I agree with that. And I think underneath the fear is some pain. Whoever wrote that, unknown, obviously was hurt, right? Obviously was hurt. So they're putting all their emotions in someone else's basket. Okay, if you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. If you're not, then I won't. I'm going to manipulate my emotions to meet you where you are.
Right.
So it shows me a lack of emotional control and someone that is trying to control because of some unhealed trauma, pain.
Right. No, completely agree.
Right.
Yep.
So what is it? Spiritual bypassing, toxic positivity, or just bad advice?
Before we hit that, though, I'm just kind of curious. Gia, any thoughts about the meme?
Any thought? Yeah, like I feel like this person definitely was saying this out of fear and probably hurt. And I too used to say the same thing, act accordingly. I can be that way. That person is still in me. But now with the person that I want to be and becoming self-aware, I know that that's not the right way to be. I shouldn't stoop down to that level. I don't have to be cold-hearted because I'm not cold-hearted. So that's something that I have to force myself to do because that's not even in me, who I am. So now when I say, when people treat you like that or show you how they are and you act accordingly, it's in a whole different thing. You treat them accordingly, according to how they've treated you, by pushing them to the side, sending them off with love, letting them be cold-hearted and however they want to be over there, but I don't have to be that way. So that person is definitely coming out of fear, and toxicity, very, very toxic. And we don't have, that's something that we have to deprogram from too. That toxic behavior, tit for tat.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely. So what are our 3 options on busting the meme?
Toxic positivity, or like you like to say, rainbows and unicorns.
Yes, okay.
Spiritual bypassing, or just BS advice.
The problem with the just BS advice is that that's kind of what we've labeled all of them so far. But I don't see it as being spiritual bypassing, because it isn't utilizing a spiritual higher self to bypass the pain. And
well, I think it may be a little spiritual bypassing because you're putting your self, your worth into giving someone else your power. You've given
Okay.
so yeah, like whenever we give our power away, we're bypassing. It's your fault.
So, like-
we're bypassing doing our own work.
Like when Gia was describing the fact that, you know, in the past she could put that forth. She
Sure.
could be that person. I think I definitely, absolutely use that tool in the past. That the choice to do it once you're aware is potentially spiritual bypassing.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll go with that.
We'll go with that.
This
Everybody
week's
agrees?
meme busted by spiritual bypassing.
Yes, we got it.
Yep. I'm with it.
Sounds
Back
good
to
to
you,
me.
DJ Montage.
DJ Montage.
We have a special little thing that I'd like to share for Gia. She is definitely a very cool young lady here. The little bit of information I have for you is that Gia is an intuitive medium, spiritual advisor who focuses on self-awareness and self-care to promote a more fulfilling experience in the journey of life. If you'd ever like to sit down with her and meet with her, possibly via Zoom or in person, you can get in contact with her through Raindance Life. It's located at 830 Chestnut Street in Royersford, PA, 19468. And the phone number is 215-692-0111.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, Gia
Thank you.
Gia is amazing, and yeah, you can have a session with her. Gosh, anywhere in the world via Zoom or in person over at Raindance. I know she'll be there for Ladies' Night this Friday night, offering mini sessions. If you want to go meet Gia and get a big old spiritual hug from her. She does spiritual coaching and intuitive readings, and she is amazing. And I'm blessed to be part of her journey.
And we are blessed to have her with us for 3 weeks.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hopefully more.
Thank you so much for joining us for the past few weeks. It's been amazing. And if anyone wants to, find us, again, anywhere on the social media, which we love and hate, right? At Raindance Life. You can find us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. Raindancelife.com is our website. You can email us right through there. You can call us right through there. All our information is right there. We have an amazing team of coaches and counselors and practitioners. And we do everything there to get your mind, body, and spirit ready to rock so you can embrace that freedom that's been elusive.
And the dating scene.
And the dating scene.
Yep.
And you can just find and embrace that favorite version of yourself.
Oh,
Well, that was our plug.
That was our plug. Was that good? What do you think?
Yes, thank you.
So, we would love to hear from you either through this show or through any of our social media channels. We love what we do. We are inspired to help everyone find their personal freedom, whether it's in dating, relationships, or life challenges, triggers, all that great stuff.
Yes.
This is what we do.
Most definitely. Well, we appreciate everyone if you're still here with us tonight. We are going to definitely head out of here from now. I hope everyone has a great evening. Genia Jesse, thank you again for this evening.
Thank
Gia,
you.
Thank you for coming on again. Hopefully we'll see you again. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, DJ. Thank you, Broad Street. We'll see you next week.
Yes,
Go Broad Street South.
Go Broad Street
Gia.
South.
Broad Street South. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
All right.